republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Board Clerk Maggie Smith, would you please call the roll?
Lindsay Need,
Here.
Maggie Smith here, Bridget Todd Robbins,
Here.
Barb Wench,
Here.
Crystal Lee,
Excused.
Jennifer Deek,
Here.
Khadijah Islam,
Here.
Chris Lau.
Here.
Okay, with 7 of the 7 board members present, I declare a quorum. I note that the agenda has been posted, distributed, and sent to the local media. With this in mind, are there any changes to this agenda? I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as published.
So moved.
Chris has moved.
Second.
Lindsay has second. To approve the agenda as published. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve the agenda as published, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please signify by saying nay. The motion to approve the published agenda has passed. All right, we'll be moving on to reports and discussion. Director of Human Resources, Melissa Cates, will now present updates to the employee handbook language. This item will appear on the June 26th consent agenda.
Hi. Sorry, the mouse isn't moving.
Press the.
There we go. All right. So I have some items tonight to bring forward for changes in the employee handbook. These items have gone to personnel and governance. Some of them we've had some great conversation around and bringing them forward tonight for the board's review, seeking approval at the next meeting in June to go into effect July 1 in our handbook. As a side note, you'll also see on the first review tonight some other items that are employee handbook. I'm not presenting those because they're strictly related to policy changes as well. So those align more with the Neola policy change work that we're doing. So I'll start tonight with the donation of leave. We have some current language in our handbook that talks about donation of leave for staff who maybe have a qualifying medical event that takes them out for more time than they have leave time available to them. That language hasn't really been working for us. We've received a lot of staff feedback on that language, would like to see changes in that area. So I did a lot of research and came up with a new policy or some new language that can go into our handbook that would be more a bank style versus a donation type of program that we currently have. So the new language, again, changes to a bank, so staff would have to donate some of their own time on an annual basis to this bank. That would be used for staff who have a serious medical condition, either of themselves or someone who they may be living with. You would have to donate to qualify to be able to use the benefit from this bank. So it would not be open to everyone. You do have to participate to be eligible for it. I did add some language after taking it to personnel and governance, just having conversation around splitting the bank between staff who are hourly compensated and salaried, just to keep those, keep that aligned a little bit better in the district. There will be a form that they can submit for like an application to apply to use the bank. There's a maximum of up to 60 days per year that they can use the bank if they qualify, and 100 days over their lifetime of their employment in the district. Again, criteria, it has to be a serious medical condition of themselves or someone that they live with. It does have to be certified by a physician, and then create a substantial loss of at least a week or more of unpaid time for that employee. Any questions or?
Any questions?
I was wondering how I read that the committee, which is 3 people, correct, will get together and review the request.
Correct.
How do you determine who gets it if there's only so much in there? Do they have to donate so much to get?
Yep, so they can donate 1 to 3 days per year, every
Okay.
employee on an annual basis, and then we'll keep track of that in-house. And then we would just go through, the application will include information that they would have to meet this eligibility criteria. Did they donate days for the current year? Do they have the doctor's form submitted? Is it a serious medical condition? Those types of things. So not really a committee for approval, but really just to see, okay, do they meet all of the qualifications that we have in the language? How much leave time do we have available for that employee to use? What do they qualify for, et cetera?
That's kind of what I was wondering. I don't know how much you have in this bank at any given time, and if there's quite a few that all of a sudden need it at the same time.
Right, and
if you
that
have
could be
enough to
that
give everybody a
It
little
could
bit.
be that there's not. So I think based on the experience that we've had in the district, it's not all at once. And I think that's also why it's limited to 60 days per time. So we can ensure that we would have an adequate amount for a few staff per year.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? Okay, next one.
The next one is related to professional compensation, specifically the mentor stipend that we provide to our educators who are mentors to new educators in the district. So we've done a compensation study. We did a study of other districts around us as well on what their program looks like. Took that feedback and really amped up our program and the expectations of what our mentorship program looks like for our educators. Took away the new teacher with no experience versus a new teacher with experience coming in, and really have those same expectations of a mentor for all of our new educators, and align that better with the stipend that they receive as well. They do have to mentor for a full school year, so again, not just for some half a school year currently. Everyone who will be a mentor and would receive this stipend will have to go through a new training that instructional services will provide on the mentor program, what the expectations are, so they have a full understanding of what those are before going into it.
Any questions on that one? Okay, next one.
So the next few are pretty quick. Professional compensation, this one we brought last year. We added some of these national board certification options for our counselors, our speech language, those types of things. We missed one last year, the American School Counseling Association. So we do have some of our counselors that use that program. So just wanted to get that added in there as well to acknowledge that certification for those staff. The work schedule, this is related to new teachers as well. So as we go through new teacher orientation and get feedback from those new teachers, we really have found out, and as we talk about the mentor program as well, that our current 2 days of new teacher orientation is not enough. So how can we get them in for another day, but not add to their workload, et cetera? So all of our teachers have a flex PD day that they have to do in a school year. It's done on their own time. They just record the hours and submit that they worked that extra day. So for our new teachers, this language would propose that their flex PD day is actually scheduled for them at the start of the school year with that new orientation as a new educator in the School District of Holmen. So instead of 2 days for orientation, they would have 3 days. That would be their already 2 contracted work days, that flex PD day, and then after their first year, they would be able to use that flex PD day on their own time. So. Subbing for a new teacher. So this language we brought in this past winter, went through the language. It seems to be working well. Worked out some kinks and bringing forward what those changes reflect with that. So not everyone has the 90 minutes, the 45 doesn't work out equal at all levels. So really splitting that out, staying with that 35, the base is our 90-minute block, which is $35 a block, and then just going down from there. So at an elementary or middle school, we may have some classes that are 30 minutes or 45, so really just integrating what that rate would be into the language. And also adding some language here that talks about teaching or supervising students when the assigned staff member's absence was not filled by a sub. So we have had some instances where we're unable to fill special education assistant positions. And when that happens, when that person is absent, the teacher then fills in and takes the student the entire day and doesn't have their prep time. So in those instances, we would pay them as well, the sub rate, so. While it's not the prep time that they're losing, they are losing prep time, but they're also, they don't have that EA to help them during that time, so. And the last piece, so this is some language in the hourly section of the handbook, specifically related to our drivers. So for our drivers, we do pay the reimbursement for them to get their CDL license. We had an instance this year where we had someone go twice and we didn't know, do we pay them? Is it just one time? So I'm just adding some clarifying language that we will reimburse up to one test.
Okay, any questions on any of that? All right, no additional questions. Thank you. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. For the consent agenda, the board has been furnished with background materials on each item or has discussed it at a previous meeting. These will be acted upon with one vote without discussion. If the board member wants to discuss any item, it will be pulled out of the consent agenda and will be voted on separately. Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as provided.
So moved.
Motion by Maggie. Seconded by Chris. Is there any discussion?
So help me understand how these work again. I do have a couple questions on two of the policies. One was the criminal background checks and one was dress and grooming. So to talk about them or ask a question, do we pull those?
Well, yep, so when I ask if a board member wants to discuss any items, it will be pulled out of the consent agenda, it will be voted on separately. That's where you typically would say, I want to pull item, whatever number it is, at that point.
I interrupt and say I would like to pull. I was waiting to hear it done. So yeah, I would like to talk about those two.
Is the board okay going backwards to
So wouldn't this motion?
I'm still learning, sorry. I know we should.
this motion? Because right now we have a motion for the entire consent agenda. That was,
Oh,
and a
gosh, I don't
second
want to
for
hold
it.
everybody up. I could,
We could say no.
Oh, just say no.
Yeah, we could vote to say no and then go back.
Okay. So all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, please signify by saying nay.
Nay.
Okay, so we will go back. If a board member wants to discuss any item, it will be pulled out of the consent agenda and will be voted on separately. So Lindsay, is there any items you would like pulled out?
yes, the criminal history and background checks, 8.4, 1421.
Just a second, I gotta, so you're in
What's
the
most
second
important
readings,
number,
item
the
number
first one or the
8.4?
second one?
Is it in the second readings?
Criminal history and background. I was trying to keep track of them. I want like which reading it was in when I was looking at them.
It's QQ.
Okay, so
And then M.
item 8.4 QQ.
Yep, and then M. 8.4 M.
And 8.4M. Okay, so Lindsay would like to pull items 8.4M and 8.4 QQ. So I would now like to entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as provided, with the exception of item 8.4M and 8.4 QQ.
So moved.
So, all right, Chris has moved.
Second.
Who was that?
Second.
Okay, Lindsay has second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda with the exception of 8.4M and 8.4 QQ, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Motion passes. Okay, so now we'll move on to items 8.4M. Do we have a motion to approve item 8.4M. I guess we'll start there. So I need a motion, and then I need a second, and then we go to discussion.
So move.
Okay, so Bridget
Second.
and Khadijah has seconded the motion to approve item 8.4M. Is there any discussion?
Yes, thank you,
Yes.
Jennifer. I would love to talk about that one.
Okay.
I just had a question on each of those. So it said, should it be necessary to employ a person in order to maintain continuity of the program prior to receipt of the report? The district administrator may employ the person on a provisional basis until the background check is received.
You are on the.
Oh, sorry, okay, which, we're doing the grooming
We're doing the
one?
grooming.
We're
one.
doing M, yes.
That was the first one I
Dress
read up.
and grooming.
Okay. It doesn't talk about inappropriate dress at all. It doesn't talk about a boy having his pants being down to where like boxes are hanging out or you can see anything inappropriate. It talks a lot about offensive language, but it doesn't talk about any sexual, whether it be sexual inappropriate dress or see-through clothing or anything like that. So I didn't know if maybe I missed that.
Thanks, Melissa.
I just need to pull it up.
I think this was a sulk.
This was a sulk.
Okay.
So
It's a
I
sulk.
guess Bridget, do you have any
Yeah,
updates to
so
this?
essentially, it has a lot of language about not being disruptive to the educational program. So if, we have to be really careful about how much we impose as far as dress codes go. But if obviously if certain body parts are hanging out, it would be disruptive to the classroom and then
So that would fall under
administration
that.
would intervene in that case.
Okay.
I would say also like the problem with stating appropriate is then someone has to define that.
Yes.
And like what's appropriate to me might be different than what's appropriate to you, and then that gets really tricky to police.
Sure. Yeah, I had those
there's a
same
lot of-
thoughts too,
yeah.
that not to tell people what they can and can't, but I mean, it's saying you can't have offensive language. I wasn't sure if, back in the day when we had,
Which
some
that's-
boys
that's
wore baggy
defined.
pants and
Yep.
their pants would be, hanging
Yeah.
down to their knees, like, I just wasn't sure.
So
if
the
that
language
was
piece is
okay.
really defined in other policies and just reported here if it's on the clothing. So that is defined, but also like kind of what Maggie says, we've gone away from really very specific examples, especially because you get into that place of like maybe more things are allowed for boys than girls. So it's a little more open-ended.
Okay. Yeah, I was interested in that. Okay.
Any other discussion? Okay. Then I need to find where I am. So there's no other discussion. So hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve the second reading as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, signify by saying nay. Motion passes. Okay, and then do I have a motion to approve item 8.4 QQ? All right, Chris has moved.
Second.
Maggie has second. To approve item 8.4 QQ as presented. Is there any discussion?
Yes, again, Jennifer, thank you. For background checks, so sometimes someone may begin working and essentially before their background check comes back. And I'm wondering, is there any oversight of that person or any other nuances to the policy I'm not understanding
I would say that's not our practice. This is just the language that is recommended to be brought forward, so. We do not typically employ people before. Even as a volunteer, we don't let them come on, they have to be with another employee of the school district if the background check is not coming back on a timely basis. So, and for employment purposes, we do not allow, we don't hire people before their background check is cleared and they're good to go.
But if someone ever were needed in a critical position, they would have a lot of oversight while
Yeah,
their background check
by
was
the
coming
other,
back.
by other, yes, other staff in the district, correct.
How long does it take for the background check to come back?
It depends on your history and where you've lived and what your background is. I just did one for volunteer last week and in 2 hours mine was back, but I've only lived in Wisconsin. I've never had a ticket,
Okay.
so.
I just know of a situation in the community where they followed this and it didn't turn out well. They didn't have stuff in place while they were waiting for that. And so that's what stood out to me, to make sure.
Yeah, for
while it's
employment, for
pending, if it
hiring,
is.
we don't, I think very limited for volunteers. We'll give the approval to say, okay, Melissa, you can volunteer, but Jennifer has to be with you at all times. So, because she's the employee of the district, so that would be a scenario where this may happen, but,
Do you repeat background checks also that?
yep, so, well, employees do not have to have a new background check unless they're applying for a new position in the district. Or,
A 4-year cycle
no,
required? like
no.
some positions?
We do, like the driving records for those positions who require driving in their position on an annual basis, just to check those. And then volunteers are every 3 years.
If you scroll down a little bit, I think a lot of that would be
It's-
answered
yeah.
with the self-reporting questionnaire. Like, if you are involved in something, you have to self-report.
Right, and as far as hiring someone, if their background check hasn't come back, they should have reported something on their background, or on their application as well, because we do ask questions to that nature. And your background check needs to match your application responses, so.
I would agree with Melissa that even for volunteers, it's not our practice to allow them to volunteer until the background check has come back. And we have recently declined last-minute requests to do field trips and things like that because they don't have a background check on file. So we are, in practice, we're very careful that way.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, so hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve item 8.4 QQ as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, signify by saying nay. Motion passes. Okay, moving on to the board debrief. I will call upon board members and ask you to present any comments or committee reports you have. So Lindsay, tonight we're starting with you.
No comments tonight, thank you.
Okay, Maggie?
Personnel and Governance Committee met on June 5th, and we reviewed, I had to count them a few times, 26 sections of the employee handbook and 24 policies by my count. You might want to double check it. We advanced those to the board with minimal edits. And the only other thing for me is honestly just a thank you to the district staff who've been helping with that transition to Neola, because it was a lot of work for the committees, but I'm sure it was way more work for the staff who helped prepare.
All right, thank you. Bridget?
The Student Achievement and Learning Committee will not be meeting this month. We will be finishing up, I think, one last policy to move over to the new platform over email. So I'll be reporting on that next month.
Okay, thank you. Barb?
The Finance Committee met tonight. We will be sending 7 policies forward for first reading. We're going to be working on 3 others in regards to federal funds before they're brought to the board.
Okay, thank you. Khadijah?
Yeah, I last week, the days are all running together. Last week I had the opportunity on Wednesday to participate in the CISA 4 annual meeting as the representative from our school district. That was obviously my first time ever being involved in that. So a lot of learning, a lot of really interesting information. The CISA 4 is made up of 26 different school districts in the area. And so I got to learn and hear about the different ways that the CISA in our region helps to support the work of school districts and support, all of the different programs that go on in our area. So part of it was a presentation talking about the state budget. And I think we are among everybody in the state waiting on bated breath for what that's going to look like. We got our budget report, I believe, at our last meeting, talking about what those projections could be. There is a general idea that we still will not have answers by the end of the month, despite that being the deadline that they're hoping for. But some things that I took away from that presentation was just how important it is to understand how we've funded education in the past in this state, how those things have changed over the years to lead us to the situation that we're in now, and how important it is for groups like CISA to be advocating for things like joint finance committees and, for DPI to be getting involved to advocate truly for all of our students in Wisconsin and make sure that we are giving our children the best possible education. So one of the big things that they highlighted was needing to strike a balance between lowering property taxes, which some of the things that were shared were that federal data confirm remarkable decreases in Wisconsin state and local tax burdens. And the flip side of that is then we feel it in public education. And so trying to strike that balance of, what are we willing to commit to as a community to make sure that we are setting the next generation up for the best possible experience. The CISA 4 annual report is available on their website. I would encourage anybody who is unfamiliar with CISA and what they do in the area to take a look at it. One thing that I specifically wanted to highlight that I think is really interesting, and I would encourage people to look into it as well, is their ALPS program. So that's the Alternative Licensing Pathways Support and Services. I believe we're the second CISA to implement something like this. I believe Green Bay has also done it. It's just an accelerated program to help get more teachers licensed and giving them like a pretty clear pathway to filling positions that are open in the area. They have 3 members of the cohort this year, and I believe 2 of the 3 already have jobs for next school year. And the sound of it from the annual meeting is that they have a lot of local interest in folks signing up for the program. So hopefully that continues to be a viable way for schools in the area to address potential staffing shortages. And I think it was really important to see that there's some more maybe proactive but also just supportive programming going on. But like I said, a lot of really great stuff in the annual report. I have a whole bunch of presentations, so if anyone would like me to share those with them, I absolutely can. But that was the CC annual meeting.
All right, thank you, Khadijah. Chris?
Not much. We had Maggie give an update on personnel governance. We haven't had a facilities meeting. We want to be on hiatus for the summer, so nothing to report there. And I just hope everybody's having a good summer.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
So I guess I don't think we've had a meeting since graduation, so I do wanted to note that I did attend a graduation, got to shake many kids' hands. I can't remember how many, somewhere close to 300. And it was just a really good, positive experience, and I really enjoyed it, just all the different personalities of all the different kids that came through and hearing what some of them are doing. So that was good. So I guess to kind of piggyback back also on what Khadijah was saying, I just watched it today, there was a Friday's Capital chat had some really positive news about our budget. It looks like there was a handshake between the governor and the committee. We'll see if it gets through the legislature. But things are looking really good. I think, and Julie can probably correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I was just trying to jot down some notes, but I think it was like $325 per student more this next year, and then again the year after, increases in special ed, mental health, and then a big item that they were talking about was a new literacy program that they're going to implement and require. So we'll see where that all goes, but as of Friday, things were looking good. So I don't know if you have anything to add to that?
I read this morning, I think they were meeting today and tomorrow, so hopefully before the end of the month, we will learn more. The draft agreement is 325.
Yep.
They haven't stated anything specific for per pupil categorical aid yet, but I'm kind of anxious to see if they'll put some money there. Have a little concern about the almost $3,000 increase in the 9th through 12th grade voucher transfers. So that's a big jump from about $9,000 to $12,000. So
Yeah.
that was large. We haven't seen that come through.
Yeah, I believe the
then I
voucher
was
program had
hoping-
this increases equivalent to what we're seeing with public education. There was a big jump there as well.
That was a big jump.
Yeah.
And then I was hoping for a little more on special education. I think the governor had asked for like up to 60%. I haven't really seen that move more than 4% since I came to Holmen. So if it moves 3.3, I guess that's a gain. Because I think the proposal or the draft is 33.3% on reimbursement for
what I
special
saw too, yeah.
education. So that's what I've learned so far, and also I hope that they move forward and we know soon.
Oh, one thing they did do was they were eliminating some safety program that was initiated back in 2018. So I'm not sure what kind of impact that's going to have on the districts, but it looks like they will not be funding that moving forward, so. Okay, so that's what I have for my updates. Moving on to item 9.3. So the board has been provided with notes from the April 24th facilities and the May 17th Personnel and Governance Committee meetings. Please take a look at those. The next two board meetings will occur on June 26th and July 10th. And the Facilities and Personnel Governance Committees, along with administration, are advancing 28 policies to the board for a first reading. If approved, the policies would become effective July 1, 2023. So I guess just a note on that, there's been so many policies coming through in the last several months because we are trying to get our policies all moved over to Neola. So the end of the fiscal year is at the end of June, and we're hoping to have these implemented all on July 1st. So once July 1st hits, we should be not looking at moving several dozen policies through every board meeting. So there won't be so much reading for board members before a meeting. So, all right, that's all I have. So is there any other business that needs to come before the board at this time? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Chris has moved.
Second.
Barb has second to adjourn the meeting at 7:33 PM. Motion carried. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion passes.